All right, hope everyone's doing well today, and thank you for your time. Definitely looking forward to our webinar today. So just to go ahead and get started real quick, to give a few things on the actual webinar itself. Over on your right, I guess you'll notice there's a few different buttons. Just wanted to point out a few things. We want to hear your feedback and answer any questions. That's the whole reason we're here. So you'll notice on the side, there's a questions area. So that's where you'll go ahead, you'll type in any questions that you have. And as we're going through this webinar, please, feel free and go ahead and contribute and ask any questions you want. We're going to go through it at the end. So we will answer those questions after we go through the sheets here. So just wanted to point that out. And then you'll notice a little red or orange arrow at the top. You can click on that. That'll minimize the go to webinar, so that way you all can see the full screen. So definitely want to make sure you're able to see that and not miss anything. So with that being said, we will go ahead and get started. And my name is Will Pepper, and I am one of the territory managers here. So I just wanted to give an introduction for those who are not familiar with us. We are Omen Systems, and to give a little background, the Omen family has been in the construction industry for 135 years, and that's been over 5 generations. So it really all started in 1881 with John Omen, who is actually the namesake of our current CEO and the founder of Omen Systems. So it started with him and his construction company. And it all started with a bridge job that they won, and that was the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis Railroad that led to the creation of the Omen Construction Company. So over the many years since then, Omen Construction has built many thousands of miles of road, done a bunch of projects, and also partnered with many different companies on infrastructure projects. And that's really led to our experience. Some of those projects that we worked on, I think you all will definitely notice the names of. That's stuff like the Oroville Dam, the Panama Canal expansion after World War II. We also partnered on the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline. And also we did work on the Alaskan-Canadian Alcon Highway. So it's really been all of these huge projects and the decades of experience that have really helped us and our background in creating our current systems. So Omen Systems, little background, the construction company went to the systems part in 1992, and that was started by our current CEO and owner, John Omen. So with that, John figured out ways to utilize our construction experience and our construction background with his expertise in the technical field. So that has led to the creation of our software solutions, specifically for the infrastructure industry. So with our construction background, we want to let you all know this is what helps us understand what you guys do. And also the importance of having the right tools to be able to improve what you do. So it's with that expertise and that experience that we bring our solutions to the table, which is actually what we'll be covering today. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to one of the other territory managers, Paul, and he's going to go through some of the worksheets in ProEstimate and really show how these are going to help you improve your processes, really make things a lot easier and also more efficient and better for your estimates. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to him.
Well, thank you, Will, for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. I'm Paul Jung. I'm one of the territory managers here at Omen Systems. And as Will mentioned, the topic of discussion today will be some of the built-in worksheets we have within our ProEstimate system. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up ProEstimate up here. And some of the different worksheets we have is we have a hauling worksheet, a trenching worksheet, a blasting worksheet, and a mobilization worksheet. So we've got a job built in here, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the hauling worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my asphalt item. And I'll open up this task I already have built out. And you'll notice we have our worksheets here located right here at the top under the crew time. And if you scroll over the different icons, it's going to tell you exactly which worksheet you're going to open up. So here I got the hauling worksheet. There's my trenching worksheet, my blasting worksheet, and my mobilization worksheet. So for this pay item, I'm going to go ahead and open up my hauling worksheet here. And the purpose of the hauling worksheet is to really calculate how many trucks you're going to need, as well as the productivity for your crew. And we have a couple different hauling sheet types. So you'll notice we have a grading sheet here. That's going to be by cubic yards in feet. Another grading worksheet by cubic yards and miles. And our final grading worksheet that's going to calculate by tons and miles. And then we're going to focus and look at our asphalt worksheet for this webinar here. And that's going to calculate by tons and miles. And you'll notice if I flip over to grading, it's just going to change a couple of the things you're looking at here below. So right now I have it by my spreader time, but if I hit grading, you'll see it's load time. You'll be looking at a loader here instead of a spreader, and then some of the different metrics here on the right. We have ton per hour here. If I click it, it's going to change some of those to cubic yards per hour. So those are some of the little differences. But as I mentioned, I'm going to stick with my asphalt sheet here. And then on the left here, you're going to have your basic description for that haul worksheet. And then below, you're going to be able to pick your spreader as well as your haul unit. And if I click that, that's going to be pulled in from your material database that we'll get set up for you guys in Pro Estimate. And you'll just pick exactly which spreader you want in your haul unit here. And the purpose of this is to put in the inputs here below, and it's going to start spitting out some of the outputs here, basically doing some of the mathematical calculations for us, so we don't have to do that on our end. So you'll notice here, I got a nice little button that says map. This is a pretty neat built-in feature within the worksheet here. So this is going to be able to help you select your start location and end location. And if I hit this drop down, I already have a pre-set up location for Will's house, as you saw Will earlier. And then our end location here, so we're going to end at Omen Systems. And if I hit calculate, it looks like it was already calculated. It will figure out my travel distance. So we're looking at about 8.3 miles here, as well as my estimated travel time. So I'm going to hit save. And that's going to automatically populate some of this area up here for me. And then all I have to do is enter some of these input fields below. So my spreader time, I'm going to go ahead and say about 5 minutes for my spreader time here. Looks like I got 5 minutes already pre-pulled in for my wait time. And then my plant time. So if my driver, gets to the plant, he's got to wait for the material to get loaded in. I'm going to say give them about 5 minutes for that. And also my efficiency. So I'm going to say we're saying about 50 minutes of efficiency within an hour. And you can change that to about 55 if you want. And also you'll see some of these inputs and outputs, or outputs and production rates changing as you change some of these numbers. So if I go back to 50 here, you'll see some of these numbers change as far as the haul cycle, the unit of haul units here, as well as my actual production rate. And then my truck capacity looks like about 20 tons per truck. And I'm going to use one spreader. And as I'm filling this out, it's going to actually give me a number of how many haul units I'm going to need, as I mentioned. So it's telling me I need about 4.39 haulers. As you know, I don't know too many companies with only 0.39 of a hauler. So we're going to round that up to 5. But keep in mind, you can increase and decrease this as much as you want. And what that's going to do is it's going to change your production here on the right. So your production is being controlled by either the amount of trucks you have or the amount of spreaders. So in this instance, it looks like our production is being calculated here. So we've got our truck control, about 114 tons per hour, and then our spreader control, 100 tons per hour. And what the actual production is going to do is it's going to choose the lesser of two up here, and that's what it's going to use for the actual production rate. But you'll notice if I drop this here, so let's say I'm going to use 6 trucks actually, then that's going to actually use my spreader control rate instead of my truck's production rate. If I drop it down here to about 4 trucks, then that's going to use my truck's production of 91.2 tons instead of my spreader's production. And then once you figure this out, there's a couple different ways to load it into your task here. You can load hauling units into the task, load loading units into the task, or load production rate into the task. So those are a couple different options you have within the system. So that is a hauling worksheet for you. The next worksheet we're going to look at is our trenching worksheet. So my trenching worksheet, I'm going to want to go to my 18-inch pipe item. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my trenching worksheet here. Some of the same information here, you're kind of dealing with the inputs to figure out your outputs. And this is going to help you calculate your stone and waste here on the right. So we got our bedding stone and then our waste quantities. So for this task, we're just doing 1,000 linear feet of production run. And if you hit this drop down, you got your couple different pipe dimensions. You got your round pipe, your oval pipe, as well as your square. I'm going to say we're using round pipe for this task here. And then you'll put in the dimensions of that pipe here. So we're using 18-inch pipe, as I mentioned. And then you'll fill in some of these fields here. For trench width, I got 4 feet. Total depth, which is 6 feet. And then vertical trench height, which is 3 feet. And I'm going to go for a 1-on-1 slope angle. And got different backfill types here. So for this example, I'm going to do bedding only for the first one. But if you guys were wanting to go to the spring line, over the pipe, or all the way, or no bedding, you can click those options as well. And then below, I got my bedding depth here, 6 inches. My stone waste, I'm saying about 5%. Also want to let you know, you can also calculate your rock excavation here. If you click that, that's just nice to note. And then you're going to pick your bedding stone below here. So I got my 57 stone loaded in, as well as my stone weight. So it's saying my bedding stone weight is about 3,250 pounds per cubic yard. That's how that mathematical equation is coming up. So with these inputs in here, it's telling me I need about 126 tons of bedding stone, as well as my excavation quantity, and then my waste quantity right here. So 261 cubic yards of waste that I'm going to have to probably load off that job site. So I'm going to go ahead and load stone here just to show you what that looks like in my task. You'll see that's going to bring in my 57 stone, as well as that quantity, as well as my price for the day, and then my waste percentage here. But let's say I'm going to go ahead and open this back up, and let's say instead of bedding only, maybe I got to do this on a street crossing and I want to go all the way. You'll notice as soon as I do that, that changed some of the outputs here, increasing some of my waste as well as my bedding stone. And maybe, you know, I don't want to use my 57 stone as my backfill stone. I want to use some of my cheaper material for my backfill there. So I can actually pick a different type of stone for the backfill. This number 7 stone looks like a good example. I'll load that as well. And now I got my number 7 stone loaded in as well for that item. So nice little time-saving worksheet to help you figure out how much stone you're going to need on a trenching job, as well as waste calculation there for you. The next sheet we'll look at is our blasting worksheet. So I'm going to go to my rock excavation item here. So the blasting worksheet is used to help you calculate your productivity as well as your materials, amount of materials you're going to need to get that blasting task done. So in regards to materials, we have our material tab here at top, just to make sure you can select exactly what you're going to need for that task. So I got my bit here, as well as my unit cost that is going to bring in from my material database, and then my lifespan. So we all know your bits, your steel, and your couplings aren't going to last forever. So we're going to put our lifespan here on the right, as well as your unit cost. And then we got our dynamite here. We're using some wet hole material and some ANFO. We're going to need some blasting mats, as well as some caps here. And then it's going to create your waste factors here on the right. So miscellaneous powder, supplies, and cap waste. As that's all looking good. Now I'm going to go to my blasting sheet just to make sure all these inputs look correct. So got my drill unit pulled in from my material database once again, as well as my compressor. We've got a couple different worksheet types for our blasting worksheet as well. We got our production drilling. That's going to be for your larger areas, maybe a site excavation. Then we got our trench drilling here, and you'll notice that's going to be sorry, I meant to pick trench drilling. And you saw we did a trench worksheet earlier. Maybe you guys run into some rock below and you got to blast that out. That's going to be for this here. And on our trench drilling, we got a couple different patterns. We got our single line pattern right here, and this is the example, just a single line of rows. Got our diamond pattern right here, as well as our double line pattern. So a couple different flexibilities in the trench drilling there. And then our pre-spit drilling, which I'm sure you guys are more familiar with, is for what you guys see on the interstates, those walls on the interstates. That's going to be your pre-spit drilling here. So for this example, I'll stick with the production drilling. You're just like all the other worksheets, guys. You're really just focused on inputting this or filling out this input field to get an output field here. So for our drill pattern, we're going 10 feet by 10 feet. We got a quantity of 50,000 cubic yards. We're going to over drill right here, the C, about 1 feet. And then our drill production is going to be 100 linear feet of hole per hour. We did our takeoff, and our average depth, it was looking like 18 feet here. And then our powder factor, so we got 1.1 pounds per cubic yard. And we're going to use ANFO for this blasting, so we're going to check that off. Then you got your percent wet hole here. We're going to leave that at 0. Dynamite hole, as well as your number of caps per hole. So we're going to go 1 dynamite per hole and 1 cap per hole here. And you're also ultimately that's going to get you to your outputs here. So cubic yards of linear feet per hole, total depth length here, crew time, so 142.6 hours, and number of holes. So looks like about 751 holes we're going to have to put dynamite in, as well as your material here. So we're going to need about 773.5 pounds of dynamite, no bagged explosives. Here's our ANFO information here, so about 56.5 tons, or not tons, pounds. And then our estimated material cost, so it's about $2 per cubic yard is what it's telling us here. And just so you know, that can all change from what you're inputting here. If I did about, let's say 105 on the powder, that's going to change our ANFO here to about 54,000. So keep that in mind. You can save that and load into production, save it and load into material and equipment, or save only here for you. So that is our blasting worksheet. The next worksheet we're going to look at, last but not least, is our mobilization worksheet here. So mobilization worksheet is nice to help you calculate the cost of getting your equipment to a project. So I'll go ahead and open up my mobilization worksheet. And there's 2 parts of calculating your mobilization worksheet here. It's calculating the cycle and the cost, and then spreading that cost to the pieces of equipment you already have loaded into this project. So you'll notice here, I got a couple of different cycle calculation methods. We've got a simple method, which is just going to be cost per mile. So for 15 miles here, that was my haul distance. What is my cost per mile for my heavy load and my light load? Or you got your hourly, which is going to be the cost per hour with some extra cycle data here you can input below. The most detailed and best route, if you guys own your own hauling equipment and stuff, is the detailed route here, which is going to be by equipment detail with cycle data. And this is the one we'll kind of look at during the webinar. So we're going to go ahead and pick our we actually pre-pulled in our hauler here. So we got our low truck tractor as well as our low boy, our driver for the low boy. And for any big pieces of equipment, we might need a chase car. So we got our sedan here. Chase car driver, we're just going to put a common laborer in there to drive that for us. Maybe for some of the bigger pieces of equipment, maybe you need a mechanic on site. If you're attaching or detaching a blade off a dozer might be an example. And then you're going to put in some of these different inputs here, the cycle data for your heavy load as well as your light load. So for my heavy load, what I have put in is the number of support laborers. I'm going to need 1 support laborer for that. Number of chase cars, it's a bigger load, so I'm going to need 2 chase cars, it looks like. We're going to do this during the daytime, so we don't have to worry about number of overnights. It's a bigger load, so I'm going to say it takes about 35 miles per hour when it's loaded, when my load boy is loaded. And then when it's empty, I'm going to say it takes about 40 miles per hour since it can go a little bit quicker. And then have a load time of 3 hours, maybe gives those mechanics a little bit extra time to take the blades on and off that piece of equipment there. Then same information for light load here. I got 0 there. Since it's a lighter load, we don't need any chase cars. No overnights, as I mentioned. And since it's a lighter load, we're going to go a little quicker than our heavy load. We'll say 40 miles per hour, 50 miles per hour, and 1 hour to load and unload. So with all this being filled out, what you're really getting at is your cycle count or cycle cost per trip. So our heavy load here is going to cost us about $525, and our light load is going to cost us $144. So the next thing you're going to want to do is spread that cost to the pieces of equipment you have loaded up into that job here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this equipment tab right here. And I already have my list of equipment pulled in, but if for some reason that didn't show up, you can hit load project equipment and it'll pull in all the pieces of equipment you have loaded up into your task. And what we do is we pull in the highest number of that piece of equipment in any given task. So for here, you'll notice we have 2 asphalt rollers. That's That's the most asphalt rollers in any single task there. So now all you have to do is allocate how many trips it's going to take you to move that piece of equipment. So for our asphalt spreader, we just said it takes us 1 trip, and we probably have to get a certification or a permit to get that piece of heavy equipment moved. So that's going to be an extra cost. I put 500 in here. And then I got our load type. So are we going to put the cost of 525, or are we going to put the cost of 144? Since it's a heavy load, we're going to put that 525. But if for some reason it wasn't, that piece of equipment was a light load, all you have to do is double click that, and it's going to prorate that cost for you. I'm going to keep it on heavy for this example. So for this broom, I think I can take this and my compressor probably on one load. So it's going to be 0.5 here. My drill, I'm going to need for 1 trip. My roller, I can probably put that on half a load there. And here you'll notice I have 2 rollers, but I'm going to say I can take both in 1 trip here. And the other pieces of equipment I'm looking at look like they can all have drivers that can take them out to the job site themselves. So my 3/4 ton truck probably has a foreman driving it. My water truck's got a driver. My distributor's got a driver. So I'm going to leave those at 0. So now you're seeing what your total mobilization cost is right here below. So for this project, to get my equipment out to the site, it's going to cost me about $1,600 here. Now hit save, and then that mobilization cost is going to be pulled in for that item here. Obviously, you'll get your breakdown on your pay item totals by cost type here if you had some extra resources tied in. That's pretty much it for all our different worksheets. And if anyone has any, follow-up questions or anything like that, we do offer free demos, as well as if anyone's curious on how the entire estimating program works, not just our worksheets, you can either reach out to Will or I or any of our other sales members here, and we'll be more than willing to help you walk you guys through how our programs work here. With that being said, I think we may have had some questions come through in the webinar, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kelsey, and I think she's going to read off some of the questions for us.
Hey everyone, like Paul said, my name is Kelsey. I do just want to note that if you guys want to see a recording of this webinar, it will be available on our YouTube page later today. So just go to YouTube and search Omen Systems and you can take a look at that. So just wanted to let you guys know. We do have a couple questions here. So our first one is, what if I have 2 loaders working a haul? How do I handle that?
Great question. So let me go back to that haul item here. So this is my asphalt. I'm going to go to my grading to change that to loaders. So I'm going to up that to 2. That's all you would have to do. And that's going to calculate, let me change this back to 5 real quick for my load time. And that's going to change how many haul units I'm going to need. So that really depends on if you want your production controlled by your loaders or your haulers. So if this is saying I just need 8 now, since I have 2 loaders, I'm going to up this to 9. Then you'll see I'm going by my loader production. But let's say if I want to go up to, or go down, let's say I want to go down to like 7. Now it's saying my production is controlled by my haulers, as I mentioned earlier. So that's just up to the estimator and how he wants to control his production.
Awesome. Got another hauling question.
Great question, by the way.
Great question. What if I only have 5 trucks, but the system says I need 7?
So you're saying you only have 5 trucks, but the system says you need 7?
Correct.
So you would just use 5 here, and then you'll go by your loader production instead of your truck production.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right, this next one says, what if I'm using a trench box? How do I handle that?
Man, you guys have some tough questions today. Yeah, let me go to my trenching item again and walk you guys through how that would work. So if you were using a trench box, you have your trench width, depth, and height. All you would have to do is adjust those accordingly. So if my trench box, maybe I'd have to adjust that to about 5 feet. My takeoff was about 6 feet, and for OSHA purposes, I'm going to go all the way to 6 feet as well, since I don't need to worry about a slope angle if I'm going to put in a trench box there. So that's pretty much all you would have to do if you had a trench box.
Great. seems simple enough. All right, last question I've got here. So what if I use a third-party hauler? How do I handle that?
Great question. So I'm gonna go back to my mobilization item here. Oh. Mobilization. So as I mentioned, we have a couple of different ways to calculate that method. So if the detailed method is if you have a hauler, driver, chase car, etc., within your own employee staff or equipment, within your own equipment fleet. But if you are, have rentals, or if you guys are having a third party system or a company you guys work with, like a lot of our clients do, that's where that simple and hourly method is going to come in for you. So all you would have to know is, hey, what are they charging me per mile for my heavy loads or my light loads, or what are they charging me per hour? So that's going to be able to take care of that for you. Great questions, though.
Awesome. That looks like it's all I've got. Thanks, y'all, and thank you, Paul.
Perfect. Good questions, guys. Always good to get some good interaction in here. Well, other than that, guys, I think that pretty much covers all our worksheets. As I mentioned before, if anyone has any follow-up questions or would like to schedule another one-on-one within any of this, feel free to reach out to us. We are here. We also have a 24/7 number if you guys need to reach us. So at the bottom of our program here. Other than that, you guys have a good weekend, and thank you for joining.